So, good afternoon and welcome to today's IFA webinar event, which is an information session for the 24th International Passive House Conference, which is upcoming in late September through to August. As hopefully everyone is now aware through our email communications, you'll know that this year's conference, because of the pandemic that's currently afflicting the world, is going to be an online event. And so today we are going to be having two members of our conference team explain to you how this year's event is going to be quite different to the ones that we had in previous years. Before we get on to the actual main content of today's webinar, I'd just like to go through a couple of housekeeping issues, particularly for those of you who've maybe not joined us for one of these webinars before. So on the right-hand side of the webinar jam screen, you'll see that there's a chat box. It's currently got people saying hello from around the world. That's the chat box where you can send comments and questions through to us, the presenters. You have the ability to send a question that's public and also private, so you can make that decision as you see fit. Okay, the webinar today is, of course, being recorded, as all our webinars are, and it's going to be available for your review after the event. As usual, a link to the recording will be emailed to everyone who's registered for this event. That email will be sent to you approximately 24 hours after the conclusion of today's event. But I should mention that because today's information session is a bit different to our normal webinars, this recording will also be available on our IFA YouTube channel, and it's also going to be available through the conference website as well. So if you know that there are some people who are thinking about attending but haven't made it to the webinar or didn't know about it, you can certainly forward them the link through YouTube or the conference website, and they can catch up and see what we're going to present today. Now, during the course of today's webinar, some short survey questions will be sent to the participants. They're going to appear on the right-hand side of the screen near the chat box. These questions are completely anonymous. They're not tied to your name or your email address. This is simply for our own statistical measure of who is attending our webinar and what you would like to see from our webinars, and to get feedback on how we're performing. So if you could answer those questions, it certainly helps us in preparing content which we know you want to see, and make sure that we're doing a good job. Okay, and actually I'll send out the first poll right now, so you can see what I mean, which is about what type of passive house qualification do you hold. Okay, now to today's agenda. We begin, of course, with the webinar introduction that I'm going through right now. I will then hand over in a few short minutes to our conference team to present to you the online 24th International Passive House Conference and all the events surrounding it. We will have some questions and answer during the actual presentation itself. So if you have questions, please feel free, when you think of them, write them in the chat box and get them in, because it helps us to understand what people need more information on. But at the conclusion of the main presentation, we will, as usual, have a longer question and answer session and try to answer as many of your queries as possible. We will then conclude with an announcement of our upcoming webinar and what's on the schedule for the next IFA webinar. And we'll be concluding today's webinar in approximately 60 minutes, so a 1-hour event. Just so everyone is aware, this webinar, since it's an information session and a non-technical webinar, doesn't have any Passive House continuing education credit points attached to this event. Okay. So today I have joining me two members of the conference team who are organising the conference. The first of them is Miss Luzia Teinert, who's been with PHI for a while now. And if you attended the conference in China, you would have undoubtedly seen her on the ground in China, helping to organise and make that event a big success. Joining Luzia today is Miss Cornelia Baumgärtner. Cornelia has been a member of the conference team at PHI for 12 years and has organised many of these events. If you've attended one of our conferences in the past, you have probably met Connie. So we're very lucky to have our two members of our conference team with us today. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Brett Hill. I've been organising the IFA webinar program for the last 18 months. And today I'm actually joined by my colleague from IFA, Mr. Carl Holbach, and he's actually going to be taking over the IFA webinar program in the next few months, and he'll be basically taking over my role into the future. So he's joining us today. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Luzia for our main presentation.
Yes, thank you, Brad, for this nice introduction. So I would like to give you a deeper insight in our online International Passive House Conference, as this is the first one of this kind. So we're really excited. We already had done a lot of things, and we're still working on a lot of things and to make this a great event. And I'm really happy that so many of you are joining us today and are interested in our conference. I would like to start to give you an overview of the conference schedule. So the conference will start on September 20th, which is a Sunday. So the conference will start with the opening plenary at 3 p.m. on Sunday, September 20th. And 3 days earlier, on September 17th, the online Passive House exhibition will already open. So you can already visit the online booth of our virtual exhibition. The exhibition will be open 24/7, so for 3 weeks. So you can visit the booth whenever you want, or in what time zone you live, so it doesn't matter. It's always there. In the next 3 weeks, we will have conference program on Wednesdays and Thursdays. As you can see here, we always have 2 sessions in the morning and 2 sessions in the evening. The morning session will always start at 9 and until 11:30 a.m. So we always have 2 sessions in the morning, and the afternoon or evening session will be from 5 to 7:30 p.m. So this is Central European summertime, to give you an idea where you can, so this is the basic time. And in the next 2 weeks, we will also have always 2 sessions in the morning and 2 sessions in the evening. And as you can see here, we will also have 3 plenaries for the whole conference. So the opening plenary on the 20th, the halftime plenary on September 30, and the final plenary on October 8, which will also be the last date of our conference. As I already said, the exhibition will be available for the whole 3 weeks, but on Wednesday and Thursday, so at the conference days, the exhibitors will also offer consultation times, so they will definitely be there available at their booth. So as I already said, the online Passive House exhibition will open already on 17th of September 2020 and will be available online 24 hours every day. And the exhibitor consulting hours are held on the conference days, on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So all exhibitors will be available at that time to answer all your questions. And in case they can be available at other times as well, of course, but they would definitely be there on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So you can make appointments with the exhibitors also via live chats. And to give you an idea how the booth will look like, this is going to be the Passive House Institute's booth. And if you're interested, maybe some of you are exhibitors or who would like to become an exhibitor at our online Passive House exhibition, you can contact my colleague Oksana Shinas. Here you can see her email address. And for all information for the registration and how everything will work, you can just send her an email. Regarding the online Passive House exhibition, I would also like to point out that the access to the exhibition for participants is free. So not only conference participants can visit the exhibition, but everyone who's interested. Regarding the conference program, as I already said, the conference will open on Sunday, 20th of September, with the opening plenary, where we have high-profile plenary sessions with the opening, the halftime, and the final plenary. In total, we will have 16 lecture sessions with about 90 lectures. We will also have virtual building tours. So this year, obviously, we can't visit Passive House projects in person, so we will have a video edition of our building tours this year. And finally, we will offer guided tours of the exhibition, so you can take part with exhibitors, and they will show you so the tours will be guided by Passive House experts, and you can join them as well as exhibitors, and you can exchange ideas and ask questions. So this means we have 7 days with 13 events. That means 23 digital sessions. And all this is included in just one conference ticket. So the following benefits for only one ticket. So what is included in the conference ticket? You will get your personal online access to all live events of the 24th International Passive House Conference. That's in between September 20th and October 8th. And you will also get access to the recordings of the lectures and building tours, and also of the guided tours of the exhibition. And these recordings will be available after the conference from October 10th to November 1st. You will also get access to the online Passive House exhibition, so that's also included in the conference ticket. The conference proceedings, they will include all contributions from the 24th International Passive House Conference, and this year they will be available as a PDF document. The German contributions in the proceedings are translated into English, so you will be able to have all, or you will have just all contributions also in English. And now we would like to point out some highlights of the program, and therefore I would like to hand over to Brett again.
Thanks, Luzia. Appreciate that. So before we actually move on to the highlights, there's actually a couple of questions that have come in already, and I thought we might just answer them because they're pretty pertinent and important questions. So actually, and one technical issue. So I've got a question from Cameron. He's lost the audio. You should see at the top of your screen, everyone, that there is a red reconnect button. If at some time you lose the audio or something like that, or it's a bit patchy, press the red reconnect button. That will take you out and bring you back in. And generally that does fix the issue. Okay, so one of the first questions we had was from Tim, who asked, will the AM content be recorded for later viewing for those who are in incompatible time zones? So we're well aware that the difficulty with having an international conference where not everyone's in the same place is that, given the shape of our planet, not everyone can view everything at the same time at a great time for them. So obviously the AM sessions are not very good for people in the Americas, and the PM sessions, conversely, are not very good for people in Asia and the Asia Pacific region. So as Luzia pointed out, all of the sessions are recorded. So you can attend the sessions live that are convenient to you or that are just really important for you to attend. And then you'll be able to review all the sessions that you missed online from the 10th of October through to the 1st of November. So that's a 2-week period. They're going to be available for you to watch all the sessions, rewatch any session you may want to watch twice, and that they'll all be available. So this is actually one of the advantages of having an online conference, because I guess for those of you who may have attended in the past, you'll be aware that we may have had up to, say, 4 sessions running simultaneously, and quite often that leads to having to pick which presentation you really want to see in a given time slot. I know for me in China last year, that was a big issue. This year, you will get the ability, because everything is being recorded, to watch every presentation that you want to see. So that's a definite benefit from having an online conference this year. It certainly makes attending worthwhile. Okay, so hopefully that answers Tim's question. And a further question was, actually, how does one become a poster presenter, and is the registration still open? So the registration for either speaking or being a poster presenter has closed. That closed several months ago now, and all our poster presenters and speakers have all been selected through the process. So that's now closed. So you can't become one of those at this point in time. If you're interested for future conferences, you should look out in the couple of months after this conference concludes, when the actual requests for abstracts will actually begin at that time for the next Passive House conference. I had a question from Angela earlier, which was, does the ticket cover the building tours as well? And the answer is yes. It's as Luzia pointed out, it's an all-inclusive ticket. So your ticket for the event covers the plenary sessions, all of the lecture sessions, the social interaction sessions, such as an online EFA meetup if you're an EFA member. It covers the virtual building tours, and it covers the exhibition and guided tour of the online exhibition. So if you buy a ticket, you get everything included. There is certainly no additional add-ons that you need to worry about, and you won't miss a thing. Okay, so I think I'll move on now. I think I've got through most of the questions, and I'll be moving on to the highlights of the program. So obviously I can't go through every presentation that's going to be available at the conference, but I've picked out today just to highlight a couple of very interesting presentations that I think it'd be interesting to point out, and hopefully if you're sitting on the fence about attending, we'll get you to join us at the conference. So the opening plenary, as Luzia mentioned, is actually on Sunday, 20th of September. And we're actually very fortunate to have, from the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, Professor Stefan Rahmstorff. He is going to be presenting. The title of his is The Climate Crisis, What We Know and What We Can Do About It. He's going to be in particular looking at the very latest research that exists from the IPCC, and how that relates to how far we've gone, how much of a carbon budget we have left, and the immediate action that we need to take if we wish to reach the Paris Climate Agreement. So that's a very interesting presentation that I hope you can all see at least once, if not live, but on replay, on the state of our Paris climate commitments. In the second plenary session, which is just over a week and a half later, and this is actually on Wednesday, I believe, the 30th September, we're actually going to be joined by Miss Julia Verlinden, who is actually a member of the German Bundestag, which is, for those who aren't familiar with European politics, is the equivalent of Congress in the United States, or the House of Representatives, for instance, in Australia or New Zealand. She is the spokeswoman for energy policy for the party Bündnis 90 and the Greens. So we're going to be joined by her, and she's going to be presenting her plenary on energy efficiency as the key to climate neutral buildings and what needs to be done now. This is a particularly interesting discussion because for those of you who do live in Europe, you've probably heard that coming out of the corona crisis, I think it's probably the word everyone's using now, but coming out of that, there's a particular degree or desire to have what they call a green solution and a green reset, or I think Green New Deal is also being used as a title. As part of that, many countries are looking at programs for the retrofitting of buildings and how new buildings must be climate neutral. So this is going to be a big issue in Europe over the next few years. And certainly from a member of parliament in Germany, this is an interesting presentation to understand and to view. So now I'm going to move on to some of the actual highlighted presentations from our speakers. So as I think people in Europe will be well aware of the term nearly zero energy building, or NZEB. NZEB is a big plank of the EU's policy for decarbonising the building stock. And we have a session in the first week on NZEBs. And as part of that, Mr. Francesco Nessi, who is a IFA member from Italy, and actually one of the heads of Zephyr, which is one of our IFA affiliates. We're presenting a project on the Megabox office, which is located on the Adriatic coast, that's the eastern coast of Italy. This is a project where it was designed as a passive house from the beginning, and pardon me. He is going to talk about how passive house was actually found to be the cost optimal solution for this type of building in this climate, which is a warm to hot climate. And so that's a very interesting discussion on how passive house is now either equal with or maybe even better than current new builds in this region when it comes to cost optimal solutions. In that first week as well, we also have a session on components and supply concepts. In that session, we're going to have Dr. Bertold Kaufmann, who's a member of the PHI research staff. He's going to be presenting on heat pump combi systems, an overview of recent developments, not just in China. For those of you who may not be aware of what a heat pump combi system is, that is a ventilation system combined with a heat pump. So rather than having dual systems, it's a combined system. A number of these systems are currently either finished being developed and are just hitting the market, or are currently in the late stages of development. And PHI has been part of those programs because, as I think many passive house designers will be aware, they're the perfect system for a passive house, particularly residential family buildings and single family homes, as you might call them. So that's a very interesting presentation if you want to get up to speed on what some of the latest technology in ventilation and heat pump technology is. So moving on to, I have to be honest, one of my favorite sessions, which is passive house tools. So for all the particularly nerdy types like myself, this is actually also in the first week of the conference, and we're very fortunate to have Edwin May joining us from New York, and he's going to be talking about new tools and new workflows for combined dynamic and PHBP modeling at scale. Ed's going to be talking about how he has developed a workflow and system of tools that enables dynamic modeling and PHBP modeling to be done simultaneously. So this is a very interesting new tool he's developed, and it's particularly relevant for those who might be interested in modeling with Energy Plus, which is a tool that was developed at the NREL Natural Renewable Energy Laboratory in the United States, and is quite widely used throughout the world. So that's a particularly interesting presentation. And I'd just like to correct myself before. It's actually Dr. Francesco Nessi. It's not just Mr. Francesco Nessi. So I do apologize. I'm not sure if Francesco has joined us, but it's Dr. Nessi. And so another presentation in Passive House Tools is going to be presented by another member of PHI, and he's actually a member of PHI Innsbruck, located in Austria, and that is Mr. Laszlo Lepp. And he's going to be presenting planning ventilation systems with Design PH. So as hopefully everyone here knows, Design PH is our visual 3D design tool for passive house. It's a particularly, in my view, great tool, and I hope many of you are using it. The planning and up until this point in time was not able to be done with ventilation systems in Design PH. But we now have, with a new project called eVent, extended out Design PH to be able to plan simple ventilation systems with Design PH. This is a new step forward and something that will be available to Design PH users in the near-term future. So if you're interested in understanding how that's going to work and how it could impact your design work, please join that presentation. So I'm just going to have a glass of water. Okay. So moving on to some of actual project-based topics, we actually have a number of sessions on retrofits. This, as I mentioned earlier, given the desire to have the Green New Deal and a green recovery in Europe in particular, retrofits is a important topic right now. And so there's a couple of very interesting presentations in those sessions, but I'd like to highlight one, and that's by Mr. Stefan Ohler from a company called EcoWorks, located in Berlin, Germany. And the presentation's entitled EcoWorks Realizes the First Serial Retrofit in Germany. So what EcoWorks is trying to do is apply the principles of the energy sprong from the Netherlands, which is a panelized retrofit system for houses. And they're trying to apply that to Passive House to make a panelized prefabricated system that enables fast and rapid upgrades to Passive House standard. That presentation is actually going to look at the results of the first 12 buildings to be retrofit in such a fashion. So if you're interested in like Passive House prefabrication and industrialization and doing it on a mass scale, this is certainly a presentation to have a look at. So moving on to non-residential projects, considering the world we now live in, and one that's afflicted by the pandemic, medical centres have become obviously extremely important parts of everyday life across the world. We actually have a number of presentations on Passive House medical centres at this conference. I'm just going to highlight this one by Sarah Velasquez Arizmendi. And apologies if I pronounce that incorrectly, Sarah. And it's the medical center in Spain, design, construction, and operation, and the first results of monitoring. So this is a medium-sized medical center in Spain, which is being constructed to Passive House standard, and it's actually going to show the monitoring of air quality and energy during the first initial use of that building. We also actually going to have another medical center from France presented as well, which is a very large center for dialysis patients, and that they had to overcome many challenges in dealing with very large internal loads because of all the hospital equipment in there. So there are some very interesting projects as we move to having more Passive House medical centers, including the first large-scale hospital in Frankfurt, which will be opening very soon. Okay, so moving on to our last two presentations I'm going to highlight. In the final week of the conference, we're going to have a Passive House policy section where we're going to have different speakers talk about policies in different parts of the globe and how that these energy efficiency policies can relate to Passive House or vice versa. To highlight one, I'd like to highlight Mr. Killian Collins of British Columbia, and he's going to be talking about people, policy, and projects, the uptake of Passive House in British Columbia. Killian is a member of Passive House Canada and actually part of their steering committee on training and education, and he's going to be talking in depth about how Passive House has been embraced in British Columbia, particularly in Vancouver, and of course Victoria, the two major centres of British Columbia, and how it's become a part of now the standard, the building standard in that state. And as a result, all the challenges that they've had to deal with, including the training of people, how they first got people on the policy side interested, and what sort of projects are now being built. And I can tell you that some of the largest projects on the drawing board are currently in the Vancouver region. So this is a particularly interesting presentation for those who might be looking to learn lessons that they can apply to their own region and understand what are some of the key ways to get policymakers interested in Passive House. And then finally, I've got a presentation highlighted from Ms. Camille Siffelin, who is a member of PHI. That project, the presentation is entitled Namaste Passive House, and it's part of the Passive House projects across the globe program, or session, I should say, and it's actually going to be discussing a PHI project in conjunction with GIZ and the Indian government on producing designs for passive houses for the Indian climate. So if you're interested in learning more about how to build passive houses in hot and humid climates, this is certainly a presentation to have a look at. And so that's going to end the highlighted presentations for today. By all, as I said earlier, that's not an exhaustive list at all. It's just a couple that I've personally picked out, which I think are of particular interest considering what's transpiring in the world right now. But we have over 75 actual presentations, so there is much interesting content to get involved with. And as I pointed out earlier, because of our online format now and the fact that all the sessions will be recorded, you'll have the ability to watch anything that you've missed or that conflicted with the other presentation you wanted to see live, or rewatch anything that you've already seen. So certainly the advantage of the online format we're going to this year. So this is an important part of this session and this webinar today, and that's to talk about Passive House continuous education and credit points. So the conference is an accredited training event, which will actually go towards the renewal of your certificate. And two types of certificate, that should be said. It will go towards the renewal of a certified passive house designer or consultant certificate, or the recertification of a certified passive house tradesperson. Now, for those of you who don't know, you do need to renew your tradesperson or designer consultant certificate every 5 years. You can do that by one of two methods. One is by submitting the documentation and being the primary designer of a certified passive house. That's one method. The second method, which many people are choosing to go down the path, is obtaining 100 credit points across the 5-year period for continuous education events. Now, it's 100 credit points across the 5 years, so there's plenty of time to acquire those. But I should point out that for this conference, the conference is worth 42 points for both the designer and the tradesperson. So that's just a little bit, or it's obviously 42% of the actual 100 points you require to renew your certificate. So attending the conference is a good way to make sure that you're going to be able to maintain the validity of your certified passive house designer, consultant, or tradesperson certificate. So I'd now like to welcome Luzia back, who is going to talk about the conference ticket prices and how they're structured, and then also introduce you to our online ticket store.
Yes, thank you, Brett, for highlighting some lectures of our program, and for the big advantage of receiving 42 credit points. I think that's really special about this year's conference. And yes, so I'll explain the prices of the conference ticket. So this is actually quite easy this year. So as the conference ticket includes nearly everything, so you can just buy one conference ticket for everything. We have the early bird ticket for 300 euros, which is available until August 10th, so upcoming Monday. So only 5 days left to get the early bird ticket. And as an IFA member or a member of an affiliate organization, the price is, the early bird price is 200 euros. And after August 10th, the regular price will be 450 euro. And the regular price for IFA members will be 300. So as you can see, there's really a big difference between the prices for members. And so I would like to give back to Brett to explain you what other advantages you can get from an IFA membership.
Thank you, Luzia. So IFA membership is certainly something that I think is pretty worthwhile and cost effective. So for those of you, I know I had a question earlier, so I know that 80% of you are already IFA members, so bear with me, but maybe I'll mention something that you weren't aware of currently. But for the 20% of you who aren't IFA members, IFA membership is 150 euros for an individual per year. For that, you get a variety of benefits. One is the IFA webinar events. Those webinar events, which are monthly, and in some cases we have 2 a month, are free to IFA members. They are available to non-IFA members now for a fee, but it's certainly much cheaper to buy an IFA membership and attend those webinars. Those webinars are generally technical topics and are therefore have credit points awarded for continuing education. So they're a good way to maintain your certificate by attending those webinars. Secondly, you do gain access and receive the Passive House Plus magazine, which is produced in Ireland, and that's one of a great magazine that covers what's happening in Ireland and the UK, plus some stories from around the world. So that's one of the IFA benefits. Another very important thing is that you gain full access to and the complete Passipedia online Passive House encyclopedia. Hopefully you all know what Passipedia is and hopefully regularly use it. That has a members only section, so you'll be able to access that members only section. I'd like to point out that currently we're actually putting a lot more material on every month onto Passipedia, and we'll be doing that for the foreseeable future, and it's certainly a worthwhile resource to use. So there's a number of other benefits, such as the newsletter, which comes out monthly, which lets you know about upcoming events. Also, IFA members get discounts on training, such as PHPP Expert course. You get a discount on that. IFA members also receive a benefit for or a discount for software such as PHPP, Design PH, or BIM to PH. So there's a wide variety of benefits, even including being invited to, say, the IFA meetups or online events that are going to be around the conference. So for 150 euros, it's well worth your time investment. Financial investment. And I should point out that it's only if you take advantage and you get an IFA membership now, you pay your 150 euros, and then you can get a reduced ticket for 200 euros. You're only going to end up spending 50 euros more than the early bird registration itself. So it's certainly a worthwhile thing to do today. So I'll now hand back to Luzia, who's going to show us the online ticket store and just explain a little bit around the website.
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to take you to a walkthrough of our conference website. So you should see now the homepage of our conference website with this really nice building, which is actually the convention center in Heidelberg, which has not been built yet. But it will be built as a passive house. And we are really happy that we can use this graphic of this convention center for our conference. And in the framework of the online passive house exhibition, you will already get to see how this building will look like from the inside, as we also can use these graphics for our online passive house exhibition. I would like to show you on the website where you can get the latest news. So this is on the home page in the news section, and you can find the latest information here by every week. And if you also would like to receive the latest information by email, you can register for our conference newsletter, which you find also on the homepage, and you can just click on it and type in what kind of newsletter you would like to receive, just for the conference or also for other offers from the Passive House Institute. Now I would like to move on to our ticket shop, as Brett already said. So here you can buy your conference ticket, still as the early bird rate. So for buying a conference ticket, you just type in how many tickets you would like to buy and click buy. And then you're in the ticket shop and need to type in all the information, especially your attendee name and email address. And in the next step, there will be the payment, where you have the possibility to pay with credit card or via PayPal. And after that, you can review your order and maybe add another ticket. And after reviewing, you just confirm your order and then you bought your ticket. After the confirmation, you will get an email with the invoice and all the details of your booking. And you can also find your invoice and all the details online at the end of this order. And you can always get back there with a link we'll send you in the email. You will receive all the access data for the lectures and also for the online Passive House exhibition by beginning of September. So with this email, once you have registered, you will first only get your invoice, and later in the beginning of September, we will send you all other access data to the conference. If you can't find your email anymore, or you just lost it or whatever reason, then you can press this link below to get the links resent so you can get access to your data again. I would also like to show you the overview of the program on the website. Starting with the Passive House exhibition. So once you click on it, you find all the information about the virtual Passive House exhibition, the opening hours, and so on. And if you would like to become an exhibitor, you also find all information on this page. And so if you would like to have a first insight in how the exhibition will look like, we made a small video, and maybe this might be also interesting for some of you as you participating as a conference participant and not as exhibitor. And then you can get an idea on how everything will look like, and maybe you would like to book a booth at our online exhibition. Back to the overview of the program, you can also find all speakers if you click here. So as Brad already pointed out, here you see all the plenary speakers, which are more to come. And also you find all speakers from A to Z with name and institution. And if you would like to see, for example, here's Edwin May. If you like to know when he's going to hold his speech, you can just click on him and then it will get you through to session 6. And then you find him here again. So you can see his title, and you will always find a short summary of all presentations in the detailed overview. Also, In the program overview, you will find detailed information about our building tours. So far, the program is not finalized, so you have to wait for a little longer what kind of building tours you're going to see. But here you already get an idea. So maybe some of you had already taken part in the open day, Passive House Open Day tour. So there you can have an idea how the videos will look like. And after the videos, you can also get in contact with the people having been part of these Passive House projects. And last but not least, you will also find information on networking opportunities. So, for example, we will offer, as we already told you, guided tours on the exhibition. So there will be Passive House experts who will guide you through the exhibition, and exhibitors can also be part of this online meeting. As participant, you have the opportunity to ask questions, and exhibitors can answer those questions, so you get in direct contact. Regarding networking opportunities, we will also offer to have an actual chat with speakers as well as exhibitors and other conference participants. So you can connect yourself with other people interested in Passive House on the conference. And for more information, we ask you to stay tuned for a little bit, and really shortly you will find more information about networking opportunities here. In the program page on this website, you also find a detailed overview of all the sessions. So for the 3 weeks, starting with the opening plenary on 20th of September. And in the upcoming 3 weeks, we have the 16 lecture sessions, which are highlighted in blue here. And in the first weeks, we will have 2 guided tours on the exhibition, one in the afternoon and one in the morning. So we hope everyone from every time zone can participate in one of the tours. And in the second and in the third week, on Thursday afternoon in week 2 and on Wednesday morning in week 3, we'll have our building tours as video edition. If you'd like to have a detailed insight in one of the sessions, then you can just click on it. And as we already saw, you get an overview of the session. And so in every session, we will always have 6 lectures. And after 3, we will also have a question and answer session where the speakers will be live and answer your questions. You can type in the chat like we're doing right now here. And after the first 3 and after the question and answer session, we'll have the next 3 also with another question and answer session, which will be live. And as we said, all the presentations will be available afterwards between October 10th and November 1st. And now I would like to go to your questions and see if we have answers to all of that.
Okay, thank you, Luzia, for that. Just let me pull up our presentation. Here we are. Okay, so we have a number of questions to get to. So so Cameron asked if I'm a member of a PHI affiliate, e.g. an APHN, do I qualify for PHI membership rates for your conference? The answer to that is yes. if you're a member of a IFA affiliate organisation such as NAPHN, and New Zealand, Australia, Spain, any of our IFA affiliates, Zephyr in Italy, for example, that entitles you to the IFA discount for this event. Because you, as being a member of a IFA affiliate, you are also a member of IFA. Okay, question from Richard. Will there be many presentations related to passive houses in hot and dry climates? A short answer, I guess that depends on the term many, but I can tell you, yes, there's a number of presentations on passive houses in hot and dry climates, particularly from Spain. Obviously, the one I highlighted from Dr. Nessi earlier from Italy. There's a number also from Australia, which are primarily hot and dry climates. So there are a number that would fit that climate for you, Richard. And also some of the tools presentations are dealing with things such as that. Also the presentation on India, while it's hot and humid, I think it's also might be interesting for people dealing with challenging climates that are, say, non-traditional Central European climates. Question from Cameron earlier was, will all sessions be available in English? So the vast majority of sessions are presented in English, with the presenter speaking English. There are a number of sessions where the presenter will be speaking in German, but for the majority of those sessions, we will have English subtitles for those presentations, so you'll be able to follow along. Unfortunately, it won't be for every single session yet, but the vast majority of any German presentation will be subtitled in English, so you will be able to follow along. Okay, so if you've got any further questions, please just send them in now. We've got about 9 minutes before we'll be wrapping up, so we probably can get to 2 or 3 more. I'll just check earlier if we had any ones that I haven't. Actually, I have a question, probably Luzia and Connie. This was from Wusok, and that was the 16% VAT for non-German people. Do they have to do non-German, or so non-European people have to pay VAT for the conference?
Yeah, so that's definitely a complicated thing. So maybe Connie can answer that question, because I'm not sure right now.
So the main thing is, if you are part of Europe, then you can get, you don't need to pay the VAT. But if you are not part of Europe, of the community of these states that have this VAT exchanging thing, then you need to pay the VAT. That's the reason. And the main thing is, if you will attend the conference as a normal person, then you always have to pay the VAT. That's what to say on this.
Okay, so thank you, Connie, for clearing it up. So if you're, for instance, I guess from Australia, the US, which have reciprocal agreements, you don't have to pay the VAT. So I hope that answers that for you, Wusok. There was an earlier question, which I actually have some time to answer now, and that was a question from Paul. Where is the best place to gain the other 58 points for both designers and tradesperson to renew your certificate? So the honest answer from me is by attending IFA webinars. We're presenting at least 14 or 15 webinars this year that have at least 1 or 2 credit points attached. So there's going to be roughly 20 credit points available by attending IFA webinars. If you attended IFA webinars over the course of a 3 or 4 year period, you would more than get close to getting those 58 extra points you need. Also, there are other continuing education events that are available on some passive house course providers. websites or some of our affiliates. So, for instance, Passive House Canada run a webinar series and a masterclass series, which you can go to their website and find. These are paid events for non-Passive House Canada members, and you can attend those events and gain the credit points for attending an event like that. I know that NAPHN, Australian Passive House, also have similar events to the Canada ones that I just highlighted. So please look around and you will find events which you can pick up those points. And you can go to Passive House Professionals website, which you can get to through the passivehouse.com website, and that will actually have a section where you can learn more about continuing education events. Also, the IFA website has a calendar which has an extensive overview of what's coming up and what you can possibly sign up for. Okay, hopefully that answers Everett's question. Is there a single place with information about credit points? That really is Passive House Professionals website. You can get to that through passivehouse.com. And as I said, the IFA website has the event calendar, and my colleague Carl in the messages has put a link up to how you can get to that calendar and have a look. Okay, so I think I've answered all of the questions that I could. So I think that really brings us to the end of this part of the session. So before we move on, you can contact us with any of your questions or requests. So if you're interested about being involved in the Passive House exhibition and you're an exhibitor, you can contact my colleague Oksana Shinas, and there is her email address on the web page, on the page in front of you. Also, if you have any press inquiries, you can send those to my colleague Katrin Kramer at press@passive.de, press spelt in the German way. Okay, and for all other questions and queries, you can reach the conference team, Luzia and Connie, at conference@passive.de. So those are the three main points of contact for anything to do with the conference coming up. So please feel free, if you have questions, to get in touch. And of course, you can follow us on social media. On Twitter, the hashtag is, and I think the hashtag works in Instagram and Facebook as well, it's #24INTPHC. We have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, which is not listed there, but Instagram and LinkedIn channels, and you'll get more information through those channels. We keep them updated. And of course, if you go to the conference website, you can sign up for the conference newsletter, which will regularly update you on what's going on with the conference and any new events that have been added. So that brings me to our next IFA webinar, which is coming up in 2 weeks from today, on the 19th of August. That is going to be presented by the founder of the Passive House Institute, Professor Wolfgang Feist, who probably needs no introduction. This is going to be on the interesting topic of durability of building fabric components and ventilation systems in passive houses. This is going to be based on a longitudinal 30-year study of the very first passive house building in Darmstadt in Germany. And this webinar will not only look at the energy performance of the building over time, but also the performance of the actual building components themselves and how the maintenance has had to go forward, and how after 30 years the building is actually surviving. So for those of you who have clients who ask a question, how often will I have to replace X component, which might not be something they're familiar with, such as a ventilation system, this is the perfect event to attend and understand what the actual experience is with a passive house building that has been now going strong for 30 years. The registration for that will actually be open this week. You'll see a note about it in the newsletter, which is the IFA newsletter, which is coming out on Friday. You'll also, IFA members and designers and other interested parties will get an email specifically about the webinar on Monday. So please look out for that if you're interested in attending. So with 1 minute to spare, thank you for joining us today. So firstly, I'd like to thank my colleagues, Luzia, Connie and Carl for joining us today, or me today, and for presenting the material to you. Hopefully, if you've been sitting on the fence about attending the conference, it's made you excited about attending the conference and learning a lot more about what's going on with Passive House in many different areas. And also I'd like to thank all of you for attending today. I know that your time is valuable. I know that most of us are working from home, but it's difficult to set aside time for events like this. So thank you for attending, and we really hope that we see you at the conference in about 6 weeks' time. And finally, before we leave, on behalf of PHI and IFA and those of us presenting today, we hope that yourself, your family, and your community, wherever you are in the world, are coping and as healthy as can be at this rather trying time for the world. So best wishes for you and your communities. Thanks for your time today, and that brings us to a close, and I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. And once again, thank you for replying to the polls that we sent out. It really does help myself and Carl in programming these webinars for you.